guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today in this video I am going to be sharing with you guys some of my tips on, guess it, how to get your period back. So I have made a video in the past about periods and how I got my period back, and I'm making another one because I had actually lost it again since I made my last period video and had to go through the process all over again on getting it back. And it was similar in ways, but it was also very different. So I figured I'd share and see if any of my tips have changed, and hopefully this information will be helpful and you can apply it into your own recovery journey if you are also on the journey to getting your period back. I figured I should give a quick background as to how I lost my period this time around in the first place. So if I start off around the time I made my last video, which was around August of 2019 or July 2019, I was getting ready to go to college. So I had already had a couple consecutive periods, and my period was really regular. When I went to college, things were a bit different. I still got my period for the first 4 months of being up there, and then I kind of lost it. I attribute it not just to college life, because I would hate to blame it just on college in general, because I just think it was my way of managing it was what made me lose my period again. I found it really easy to get sucked into the mindset of comparing myself to other people and constantly having pressures in school to, whether it's like completing my schoolwork or whether it's attending this function or that function. I felt like I was always moving and I literally had no time to rest. So that, on top of the fact that I know I was not eating properly at all, I was having like the typical college thing where like you are running around so much that you don't have time to have like a full meal, so you have to have like a snack or something like that, and then you don't end up eating enough, and all of that. Plus I was walking everywhere. Like I didn't have a car, so a lot of times I'd be walking to my classes, I'd be walking to the grocery store, I'd be walking to the coffee shops to study, and everywhere. So I just wasn't accounting for how much movement I was getting in. I was basically, during that time, I was under fueling and I wasn't compensating for my exercise. And to be honest, I think I was exercising way too much. I was using it as an outlet, but it kind of went to an extreme. I was going to workout classes almost every single day. I was walking to my classes, I was running, and it just took a toll because, again, I wasn't feeding myself properly or nourishing myself properly or eating enough. So obviously that led to the loss of my period, and I lost it in November of 2019. And then quarantine happened. So it was kind of like a blessing in disguise for me, because it gave me an opportunity to sit back and reevaluate at home, like where my priorities were. I couldn't go to the gym and workout classes, so I wasn't really as active, and it kind of forced me to take a break, which was what I needed. Even though I didn't want to admit it outright, I did need a break. So I'm really grateful for that time, because it allowed me to heal and it allowed me to really fix my relationship with food. I think this is the happiest I've ever been, and it's like the best my life has been so far. So I'm really excited for that. That's a little bit of a background. The rest is kind of history, because I've been making videos documenting everything, so you guys kind of already know what's happened since quarantine. But I wanted to share with you guys now that you have that other background as to how I lost my period, how I got it back. So tip number 1, I feel like this kind of goes without saying and like everyone knows it, but it's to take rests and no cardio. I was a stickler for cycling classes when I was at college and running. I loved to cycle. I fell in love with it. It was really hard to stop cardio because those are typically ways that I genuinely love moving my body, but it's becomes one of those things where you have to put your health first, and you have to put you have to prioritize what things are important in your life. And getting my period back was one of the most important, if not the most important thing that was in my life at that moment. So I did give up cardio, and I'm still not doing cardio as much. I maybe do like a kickboxing workout once a week, but other than that, I don't really do cardio right now. I'm still like slowly reintroducing it. As I get more periods and as they become more regular, I will increase it if I want to, but for the time being, if you are in recovery and you are working to get your period back, I highly suggest no cardio at all. And this is because when you do cardio, you are revving up your heart rate, but not only that, you're also increasing your body's secretion of cortisol, and an increase in cortisol puts you in that fight or flight mode where your body's like super tense, and it's not going to feel comfortable, and it's not going to feel like it's in a safe space to give yourself a period or to allow a period to even happen. So it's really important that you stop cardio, because by doing that, you're helping to decrease the amount of cortisol your body will produce, and thus create a safer environment for your body to feel like it can start producing regular periods again. And I know for some people like me, I didn't completely cut out exercise, but I think, again, it's all subjective on the individual and your own recovery journey. If you personally don't think, or if you are working with a professional and they think it's okay for you to incorporate some light movement, then I don't really see a problem with that. I do agree that you should not be exercising as in like going to the gym like 3 times a week or 5 times a week, because that's just not sustainable when you're trying to get your period back. For me, when I say I was doing movement, I mean that I was doing yoga some days. I was going on walks while listening to a podcast. I wasn't going outside 3 times a week pushing weights and sweating for like an hour. Like, it was very minimal, and it was just to get my body moving, to leave me feeling good. Now, rest is really important because you're allowing your body to restore all the organs and all the systems that have had to have been like shut down or slowed down as a result of being in a state of starvation or malnutrition. When you're resting, when you're taking time to rest, you're allowing your body to heal from the inside out, and you're allowing your body to just rest. I mean, a lot of people lose their periods, whether it's because of stress, whether it's because of over-exercise, whether it's because of under-eating. Your body just needs a break, and by resting, you're giving your body that break, and it will thank you. I promise you it will thank you. And the one thing I will say though is, when you do take a rest day, when you set aside a day for rest, you better rest. And I say that with like all capital letters, because you can't just say, oh, today's my rest day, but I'm gonna go outside and do like an hour and a half of yoga, or I'm gonna go do a Pilates workout or whatever. Like, you need to get your priorities in check and say, okay, today's my rest day. I'm going to completely rest. I'm not going to exert myself more than I need to. I'm going to allow my body to heal itself. I'm going to allow it to take the time it needs to rebuild and help me to function optimally again. So rest is very, very important, and I cannot stress enough how important it is to take rest when you need to. So tip number 2 is to make sure you are eating enough. I was in recovery this time around. I know I was not getting enough protein or carbs. Like, I just wasn't, and it was a problem. So it's really important during this time that you are healing and that you're working to get your period back, that you're making sure you're eating enough and enough balanced meals. You can eat like 2,500 calories of sweets, but that might not help you to get your period back. You might gain weight because you're eating food that your body's gonna use, but it might not help to get your period back because you're not getting all the essential vitamins and minerals that are existent in different kinds of food groups. So definitely make sure you are eating enough calories and the right types of food. So I recommend usually having some form of carbs, proteins, and fats at each meal. And then usually my snacks are a mixture of carbs and protein and fats sometimes. So especially when I was working to get my period back, typical snacks for me were like banana bread with peanut butter or almond butter on top, or my favorite was dates, peanut butter, and chocolate. I'd have like a couple dates, I'd have like a big spoonful of peanut butter, and I'd have like a bar of chocolate, and I just have all that together, and it was just amazing. So I highly recommend that as a snack if you're looking for ideas, but definitely calorie dense snacks were important. And again, make sure you're eating a balanced amount of carbs, protein, and fats. And as for calories, I'm not one to count calories. I don't like counting calories. I don't like the vibe that it comes with, but I know for some it might help them. So always make sure you're having at least 2,200 or 2,500 as a minimum. I say minimum because when extreme hunger hits, if it hits for you, you're gonna want more, and that's okay. 2,500 is just the minimum you need to begin the restoration process. I forgot to mention this, but this is so important. Make sure you are eating enough throughout the day. Like, make sure you're spacing your calories or your intake throughout the day, and not just eating a predominant amount during a certain period, or not eating up the whole amount during a certain period of time. So what I mean by that is, for example, I was notorious for having like eating throughout the day, but I would eat most of my calories, or I would eat most of my food at night. For some people, it's not the best when you're trying to recover your cycle. You want to make sure you're getting an adequate amount of calories evenly throughout the day, rather than having like the bare minimum at brunch, at breakfast and lunch, and then having all your calories at dinner. So yeah, just make sure you're getting an evenly spaced amount of calories throughout the day. And usually it's not that complicated. It can be as simple as just having breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then making sure you're having snacks in between your meals, or at least eating every 2 hours. So yeah, highly recommend that. Another thing I will recommend is this book. It's called No Period Now What by Dr. Nicola Rinaldi, and this book is amazing. I never read through it in its entirety, but if you are looking for a more science-y kind of fact-based approach to getting your period back, I highly recommend this book. It's very reassuring in telling you that if you follow this, you are definitely going to be on a path towards getting your period back. She also has a support group on Facebook that I joined actually when I was recovering recently to get my period back, and I can't tell you how helpful and amazing they all were. All the women there are so strong and so inspiring, and hearing their stories on how they got their period back and what they did really inspired me on my own journey, and some of the things I would implement into my own recovery to see if it would work. And it's just a really good space and a good resource if you're on this journey and you could use the extra support. So I highly recommend it, and I'll actually leave a link to the Facebook group if I can, and the book, so you can get it if you're interested. So tip number 3 is to live label free. Now, this is kind of a quick one. There's not really that much to it, but I felt like for me, when I was living not super strict, but I was kind of living confined to a label, it was really hard for me to eat certain foods. I say that with like being vegan. I'm still like 99% vegan. I don't really eat animal products. I don't eat dairy, and I don't really eat meat, but there was occasions where like I would eat seafood, or I would eat something with eggs in it, or I would try eggs. I've tried eggs a couple times, and like every time I just can't. I'm like repulsed by it, but I mean, you never know. So I think for me, living detached from a label has been so much easier, not only on my mental health, but on my physical and like spiritual well-being, because I no longer feel like if I go somewhere, it's like, oh my god, like there has to be like, it's not completely vegan, like then I can't eat it, or like what if they put a little bit of, like, it took away a lot of the stress that I was putting on myself in regard to eating and eating situations when I was going out with family and friends. So I definitely think living label free, or at least taking a break from a certain lifestyle, can be beneficial during this period, because you are you want your body to be as calm as possible and as relaxed as possible. And for me, I think continuing to put pressure on myself to eat a certain way, or live a certain way was putting too much pressure on my body. So taking a step back was definitely something I needed, and is also something I would recommend if it's something that you think would be beneficial in your life. So tip number 4 is to find better ways to manage your stress. And I am a stickler for this one because I'm like a stress ball, like I'm like a stress magnet. I attract stress no matter where I go. And I probably shouldn't be speaking that out loud because I don't want that to manifest into my life. But yeah, I am guilty of constantly being stressed and not doing anything about it. So I highly recommend finding ways to combat your stress, and that can range from anywhere to developing a meditation practice, to taking time to just sit with yourself and be silent, to taking time for self-care and watching a movie and just relaxing, finding something you enjoy. All of those things can help decrease your stress levels and will also help you in regaining your period, because again, as mentioned earlier, cortisol is not your friend in getting your period back. You want it to be as low as possible, and you don't want to do anything that will spike your cortisol levels and put you in that fight or flight mode. So definitely finding ways to decrease your stress and just cool down is very beneficial, and I highly recommend it. So I forget what tip I'm on. I'm sorry. But the next tip is to reconnect with your body. Now, this is also pretty spiritual and pretty straightforward, but I found that when I took the time to reconnect with my body and to actually pay attention to her, I feel like I developed a stronger connection. And what makes this recovery journey, I think, different from my previous journeys of getting my period back was that this time I feel like I actually connected to myself. Like, I think the first time I was just following like a protocol, and I got it back super quick. I actually got it back like within a month or 2 after not having it for like 3 years. But I feel like I got it back way too fast, and I didn't have enough time to really make that connection with my body and develop that sense of respect and gratitude and general awareness of my body and who she is and how she feels. So that kind of led me to that instance last year where I didn't listen to my body and I wasn't listening to the signals she was giving, and instead I ignored them, and that ended up resulting in me losing my period again. So this time I feel like I've developed such a deep love for myself. I know that if I gain weight, then it's fine. I mean, it's funny, I'm filming this and I got my period yesterday, so I think this is kind of like cool that it's like coming full circle. But yeah, like for example, I was feeling really like bloated today, and like I just smiled at that. I was like holding myself, and I was like, oh my god, like just relishing in all that my body's able to do, and I'm so grateful I'm able to do this. Developing that deep connection with your body, like, it will make your recovery journey so much easier. And it all starts with just acknowledging her presence. So acknowledge that she's there, acknowledge that you're going to take care of her. And if anything, she was my motivation when I was recovering, when I was getting better. If I didn't want to do something, if I didn't want to eat, if I didn't want to put in the extra effort, I was like, fine, I don't want to do it. But I'm gonna do it for my body, because my body has done absolutely nothing wrong. My body has done nothing but try to keep me alive, to try to stand up for me, and I'm not going to let her down, and I'm not going to take this out on her because she's not deserving of it. So definitely building that relationship with your body is a must to recovery. This next tip I never really did myself, but I know for a lot of people it helped them a lot, and that is to get hormone tested. I know it can help a lot of people like set the foundation for where they are currently at in their recovery and where they need to be. And especially if you're working with a dietitian or some other professional, it could also be really helpful to get hormone tested. But again, it's all dependent on the individual. I personally didn't get hormone tested, but I did follow all the other protocols, such as making sure you're eating 2,500 or something calories every day, make sure you're resting and not really doing any exercise, decreasing stress and all those other things. And I was able to get my period back. So again, it's different for every individual, but in my opinion, it can't hurt you if you choose to get hormone tested or blood tested or anything like that. I would also say that working with a dietitian even though I didn't work with a dietitian as much this round of me getting my period back, but previously when I had first got my period back, working with a dietitian was really helpful because I was still like in the depths of my eating disorder. I don't want to say I've been eating disorder free for a year, but I definitely wasn't struggling as much this round because it was less about the eating disorder and more about me just genuinely not fueling my body properly. Definitely recommend working with a dietitian if you are able to, and I will leave a link to the NITA website because they have I think a platform or a program you can plug in a name and your location, and they can give you like eating disorder specialists in your area, and I think dietitians as well. I'm not 100% sure. But I will leave that resource below if you need it, or if you would find it helpful. I'm so grateful I was able to see a dietitian when I did, because if anything, they taught me how to portion out my meals and what was enough for me. So for example, I realized when I was first recovering that I wasn't getting enough protein and fat, and through working with a dietitian, I was able to learn ways I can incorporate adequate amounts of those throughout my day to make sure I was eating enough. Final tip for you guys is to trust the process. It's easier said than done, but definitely know that it takes time. This process is not something that is going to take only a week, or you're gonna eat proper, you're gonna follow all these tips and then within a couple days you're gonna get your period. Like I wish it was that easy, but it's not. I can't tell you how many times there was moments, there was literally like a whole month where I was having like period symptoms. Like I was getting really bad cramps every single day, and I was having really bad migraines, and I still didn't get my period for another 2 months after that. So it's definitely a process, but it's worth it 100%. I promise you it is worth it. And please don't compare your progress to someone else's. I know countless people might get their periods back within weeks of upping their intake and taking rest, and some people it takes months. Everyone's recovery journey is different, and no two are the exact same. So trust that if you follow these protocols, if you follow these steps, you are going to be on a path towards getting your period back and towards recovery. And I promise you that it's worth it, because I know you're worth it. I know you are so strong, because if you're watching this video, you are in that mindset. You have that little seed of a mind of knowing that your health is worth it, and that you are worth it, and that you want to make a difference in your life for the better. So know that I'm rooting for you, and I'm always here as a resource if you ever need guidance, or if you ever have any questions. I'd be happy to guide you and send you to more resources that might help you. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did find it helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already. And also, it would be great if you click the bell icon so you know when I post videos next. I am planning on posting a lot more, and I have a couple more recovery related videos coming up, so definitely stay tuned for that. I'm sending all of you guys so much love and positive vibes, and know that you can do this again. I am right here cheering you on, and I will see you guys in the next video.